Sabay nga na sumuna sa ganal sa di kurang rangko Arwa cita sumodong lupa nagsingit pa mandirang niko Kung katangi nga katungo ni katana sumuna Nasimang di kurang ko nasimang ni kasaka parang mga kuwadra Jion nanchen grong regram Ni soeng ka sa kantikon chang satay ku atamanaram chakswa rpengrang dalni episode to ngana simang nadeng tangman sa saksaman de kurang banak tas kenga bias kango ni huos kigpani kamko kanga ha aruda ona kangkang bia turana arwa chika songna smbra kwenga aro ka pak kwenga bia deng tangman sa kapamande nga maina bia saksa poet nga ba poetry rangko sega pamande nga lekha rangko sega pamande nga bini poetry rangko international journal rangon gat playing ha unigam nanga deng tangman sabi ko kuatra munaram chakswa I welcome you to kuatra madam it's my privilege to have you on my channel madam please kindly tell us something about yourself.
Hello dear friends in the Garo Hills. I am Babita Marina Justin. I'm a poet, an artist and a teacher. I've written quite a few books in English and I have 2 poetry collections and 2 anthologies and 1 book on English essays and all, and I'm planning to come up with a novel. The novel is almost ready, publisher is ready too. Now I just have to bring it out once the COVID days are over or once COVID subsides or once we get used to COVID. I'll be coming out with a novel as well. So that's about me.
Madam, can you tell us how do you reach Garo Hills and for how long you have stayed in Garo Hills?
It's always a pleasure to get back and think about the Garo Hills and my second hometown, Tura, where a lot of my friends, students and relatives are there, and it's always nice to speak about the place that gave me so much of experience, the place that gave me so much of love, and of course the place which initiated me into poetry as such. I came to the Garo Hills, by sheer luck, fortune, I would say. In fact, I was doing my PhD in the Hyderabad Central University, and I just saw an advertisement that in the NEHU, they were in fact inviting professors, assistant professors, those times lecturers, and I applied, and I was invited, called for an interview. So I went to Shillong for that. I went for the interview, and then I was selected, and I thought myself to be very lucky. I was 25 years then, pretty young, to be a teacher, but then full of life. And I was about to get married, and I thought this is the right time. See me getting a job there, going to get married, and then I made my PhD into part-time PhD. And I thought I should go to the Garo Hills. In the first place, I was a bit reluctant. Okay, then my husband, who in fact had traveled all over the northeast, he said that this is one paradise. You should be there. You should go. You should be, and you should be there to enjoy the place, experience the place, etc. So I was also quite adventurous, and I thought, yeah, this is the right opportunity to go to the Garo Hills and to Tura. And on May 7th, 2002, I reached the Garo Hills. And first of all, I reached there with my fiancé, my husband. And first of all, I never knew that it's such a faraway place. From Hyderabad, it looked pretty far away. And then, we got down at Guwahati, and from there we took a night bus. And the night bus was the first time experience for me, because I was like absolutely in the dark where exactly I was going, and I was wondering if I had taken the right kind of decision, or maybe is it my youth, just like that, because I made my PhD into part-time. So I also resigned from my fellowship. So getting back to the fellowship was quite difficult. and almost impossible. So I was questioning myself throughout my journey if I had made the right decisions. And early in the morning, I reached the Garo Hills, and I thought it was 6 o'clock. And I was awakened by this familiar smell of, it was May, right, of jackfruit. So I could smell ripe jackfruit throughout, and so we were going through such winding ways, and it was dawn already. And I checked time, it was 3:45 early in the morning. And I was like, 3:45 is the time, we start to sleep, especially in the metropolitan cities, and especially in the university as such. And it was like daytime, it was daybreak, and throughout, I could see a lot of bamboo trees on the side, on the hills, on the rolling hills, which was traveling along with me. And I could also see areca trees, so my home side. So everything was smelling like home, and I knew that this is a very special place that I'm going to be. My parents and all were asking me why I had gone to such a faraway place, and I always told them that getting a Central University job at a very young age is no child's play. I must have been particularly chosen by God to have actually gone there. And then I reached the Garo Hills. I reached Tura early in the morning. I went to the NEHU guest house. Those days NEHU guest house was like in Chandmari. So I got down at Chandmari, then we walked to the NEHU guest house, and of course everything was arranged there already. And I just got up on a little bit of sleep, and early in the morning I walked to NEHU Tura campus, and I thought campus would be huge, and this was a small place with a single story building there, like a school. And I entered, I went to the English department. I can remember each and every instance, okay? And Professor Ganguly was there, Choli out there. Professor Gurudev was there. And Thakurji, and Joseph sir. And I didn't meet them all in the beginning. I was about to sign my appointment order. Then I heard the bells ring. Those were not church bells, those were the school bells, but I thought it was very auspicious. The moment I was actually signing, the church bells rang, and that was the day, I started teaching. It's almost 18 years now, and the memories are so fresh and green, so green. And then I went to the class. The first day itself I went to the class, and there were about 20 students, and I was quite unfamiliar, but I was very happy because most of the students were around my age, slightly younger or older or my age, and I was like, okay, I'm one among you. And that was my first experience at the Garo Hills. I had my professional worries and troubles and all, and I was very young, I was very emotional, I was getting, upset for everything. As a girl who has been brought up in cities and getting my way out all of the time, so I had my emotional dilemmas, and I was about to get married. I didn't have enough leave and all, but then I met my friends out there, George and Daniel, and they all told me, and Jaiswal, Professor Jaiswal sir, so they all told me how to go around and take a leave and then go get married. Then, I taught for some days. The first novel I was taught, I had taken was James Joyce's The Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. That was a very tough text, but I remember each and every moment. And it makes me very emotional thinking of that, because unless I was a chosen one, I wouldn't have got a job and come to Tura. Now when I think about it. So that was my first day in Tura. And early in the morning, I had noodles. In the afternoon also, I went to the Nepali shop nearby and had noodles. At the evening also I had noodles, and I was a bit exasperated. I was like, oh my God, will I have to have noodles all the time? And then that was only the beginning. My arrogance of having come to a small town was in fact coming out. So, and all those confusions of a youngster, taking up a job for the first time and going to the hills for the first time. So it was all there till I became part of the hills. Then I made friends and I became part of the hills for 5.5 years. The kind of time I spent in Tura, in fact, made me what I am today. And the kind of relationships I built in Tura, it was never for a short while. Even now I'm friends with almost all my students. A lot of students, we are still friends on Facebook. We don't even in fact think as if we haven't been apart for such a long time. And I can write hundreds of books about this, from various different angles. I can even smell, Tura right now. In July, I sit in Trivandrum, so far away, 4,500 kilometers away from Tura, and I talk about Tura. I can still smell Tura. I can feel Tura. I know it's somewhere deep inside my heart, and nothing can in fact take those memories and take those expressions and impressions away from me. That is it. I have been in many places in India like Delhi and Hyderabad and many places. Of course, Trivandrum, all over Kerala. I've traveled all over India, but there is not a single place which I can call home, as I call Trivandrum and Tura.
Do you have fond memories of Garo Hills?
My fond memories of Garo Hills. I have had a lot of bitter memories of Garo Hills, but to be very frank, the fond memories and grateful memories stay with me, and they're more prominent right now. I had a tough time adjusting with the department in the beginning, but then my colleagues became my friends, and then in the Garo department, I had some wonderful colleagues who were like sisters to me. And in the education department also, Nickme, Fami, Jackie and Tokachi, they were all, in fact, they used to invite me home when I was alone. They used to feed me with that lovely, sumptuous food. Oh my God, my mouth is watering. And, they made me feel at home. In fact, both my pregnancies were in the Garo Hills. I got married, came to Garo Hills, then I became pregnant there. I gave birth to my first child in the Garo Hills, and my second pregnancy was most of the time I spent in Garo Hills, though I had come home for delivery. And so those are the fond memories. And then another fond memory is like, the bitterness is apart. My students, I've had such a gala time with my students, without exaggeration. We used to get together at home and we used to party the entire day at times. We had partied 3 or 4 times. I had a couple of students coming home and staying with me when I was alone. And these students, I had broken my arms, and lots of things happened in the Garo Hills when I was there. Okay? Lots of things happened to me. So my students stayed with me and took care of me. Sengji especially took care of me. And Garo Hills is also the place, where my husband was caught by the militants, and I just escaped, and my husband was caught by the militant, Garo National Liberation Army, or the Archik Liberation Army. I do not remember which one exactly, but then I remember Jerome came moment, or somebody was the head of it, and he was there. And after my husband was caught, I had a terrible time. We were very scared actually, because they were holding their AK-47s and they were threatening us, etc. And they were also asking us not to tell anybody. So it was such a scary experience for both of us, and because my child was also there, and we nearly, had a shock of our lives, getting caught by the militants. But now when I look back at it, again it was a great experience. In fact, Shohan Dishira was the person who was there. He passed away. He was killed, 2-3 years back. I read it here in Kerala, and the old memories came running to me. So this is by a lot of strange coincidences and incidences. In fact, lead me and tie me down to Tura. There's something. Maybe, like in my previous Janma, I was one of the hill girls. I know, I'm very much sure that I'd been there. So that was one of those bitter experiences, but I have written so much about it. Those days it was traumatic, but when I look back at it, again it was one of those rich minds of experience that I perhaps got.
You have been in Garo Hills for a long time. Do you feel nostalgic for Garo Hills?
Then my nostalgic memory is that, see, for one whole month, my friends and I, we were 4 women in fact, 2 of my students, NEHU Tura students, Kit and Sengchi, and another photographer friend of mine, Seema, roamed around to the entire Meghalaya. We went to Bakmara, we went to Dauki, we went to Balpakram. We just had a ball. We just traveled like wild travelers, and we went all over. We crisscrossed the lengths and breadths of Meghalaya. We went to the Khasi Hills, the Jaintia Hills, and of course Garo Hills as well, the places that we have never gone. And this was an astonishing experience for us because as 4 women out there traveling almost alone with no man to chaperone us, there was never an instance of a catcall. There was not an instance of people looking at us weirdly, which I can't experience in the plains. In the plains, you are a woman. We were never ever made to feel like a woman during all those travels, and we really enjoyed. Another nostalgic experience is the fact that my students, I've never had such wonderful students. We've cooked together, we've danced together, we've drank together, we've had fun together, we've studied together. In the class, it was a very different equation altogether. Nowhere, and I have taught in many parts of India. In Delhi, I've taught. In JNU, I was teaching a small group of students. In Hyderabad, also, I have been teaching for some time. And then, of course, in Trivandrum also, I've been teaching students from all over India. But the kind of warmth, the effusive warmth that I could experience from my students in Meghalaya. So there were all kinds of students, like we have Garos and Jaintias and Khasis, and we have Nagas, and we have Nepalis and Bengalis. The kind of love I got from Tura is like, I cannot explain that at all. Without any iota of exaggeration, that was one of those lifetime experiences for me, which again built me up as a person, as a human being, and that was very, very important.
Madam, tell us something about your job right at this moment.
Now, I teach in a space institute. I'm associate professor here, and I began my life as a lecturer in Tura, as I have told you. I started my classes teaching students in NEHU, and that was again, I was teaching English language and literature there. So I've taught the Wasteland, I've taught James Joyce, I've taught Milton, part of Paradise Lost, I've taught all kinds of stuff, and modernism, etc. But then when I came to Trivandrum, I had to actually switch over my subject to English teaching, because I'm teaching BTech students out here. And of course I have PhD students as well. So, and they do the BTech there. So that is a different kind of experience altogether. Very, very young boys, and mostly boys and girls, who come there and who establish a kind of relationship which is very professional out here, and they leave. Of course, some of them do keep in touch, but it's not like my students in Tura. My students in Tura were not my students, they were my family members, and they accepted me as one. And they used to take me home and feed me such lovely dishes. Oh my god, I can't. Without any exaggeration, I'm telling you this. As a teacher, in fact, I built myself there. I understood the warmth of relationships and the importance of relationship.
Madam, can you tell us about the books and the poetries that you have written?
My first one was a book of poetry. It's called of Fireflies, Guns and the Hills. That was like I had compiled around 38 poems, and mostly it was about my journeys, it was about me, and it was about my life in Tura. As I have told you, it was Tura which in fact gave me the confidence to write poetry. In Tura, when I was 28, my husband had come back to Trivandrum. My child was also away. I was alone in a house. And how much ever my friends had tried, there was this element of loneliness in the evenings, to come back to a house which had nobody there. It was one of those traumatic experiences for me. And then what happened is that we had a Northeastern Literary Festival in NEHU. And at that time, this famous poet from Shillong, Robin Ngangom, had come, and that was a kind of a turning point, I'd say. So he recited one of his poems in NEHU, and then when I heard, I was also inspired to write. I wrote a poem and I sent it to him over email, and he told me that was really good. And then there was no stopping me. Changed my life forever, I would say. And then I went to the Northeastern Literary Festival. I recited a couple of poems, and I was appreciated. And I just kept on writing poetry. And even now I'm learning steps. Even now I'm learning and relearning all the steps of writing poetry. And then I wrote a book of essays for MA students, for postgraduate students, from canon to trauma. And that's a kind of study materials. You have all kinds of essays on what is contemporary, and about theories and what is contemporary, on travel literature, on theories of trauma, on canonical literature, etc. So there are these series of subjects that we have chosen from, and that book was the second one. After that, I did a very important project with one of my friends. Her name is Abhirami Sriram. She works in Frontline, and on Facebook once she wrote about her grandmother, and that was very fetching. And I thought all of us have memories of our grandmothers, and so we just went on and asked from writers, established writers all over the world, women writers, to write about their grandmothers, and all of them wrote back to us with a lot of enthusiasm saying this was exactly what we were looking for. So this is that book. It's called Salt and Pepper and Silver Linings, celebrating our grandmothers. This is my latest book. This is I Cook My Own Feast, published by Red River. It's my second collection of poetry, and this is very important to me because, see, there are plenty of pictures here. These illustrations are all mine, the illustrations which are here. And what is more important is the fact that most of the poems, I went professional. The second time I started, I compiled my poems, I became professional. I published most of my poems elsewhere on international journals. Around 22 to 25 of the poems out here, out of the 40 poems here, were published internationally. And even this picture, I painted it. It's all my kind of stuff. And for me, I cannot actually think of poems or books or anything which is written, cannot be in fact detached from paintings or illustrations as such. For me, words and images, they kind of coexist. So I could put these things together here. Now, The latest one is novels called Sandpaper Memories. Will be published soon. So, how I came to the Garo Hills for the first time, and those fears and anxieties that I have told you about, I've tried to write it.
It is my humble request, please kindly give some tips for the budding poets of Garo Hills.
There are so many good writers. I have, in fact, read so many Garo poems in English. Twinkle's one. In Garo department, I have read so many of their works. And I'm sure there are a lot of youngsters who write poetry, who write novels. It's not an easy world, publishing as such. It's a very difficult kind of world to, in fact, make your entry. But keep writing and keep trying. That's one thing. And one thing is that, writing and editing, these are complementary things, okay? They coexist. And every time you write, you have to get back to it and edit. So you should not be so much attached to your poetry or your writing that you should not insist saying that I have written this in English or I've written this in Garo. This should not, in fact, be edited and stuff like that. No. In fact, we have to chisel, we have to groom and chisel and make our make our writing fit for a kind of a readership, fit for enjoyment for the readership. You should never ever forget the reader, even for once. It's like they're the ones who ought to read us. So you have to keep them in mind, and definitely you should be willing to make the changes, make necessary changes, and make all the grooming and chiseling of your work as such. And there your ego should not, our egos do interfere because writers have huge egos. There your ego should not interfere. In fact, you should be willing to be flexible and willing to change yourself, because writing changes you from deep within. It really hurts you. It changes you. It transforms you. It's like a love-hate relationship, and you really have to. In fact, if you want to become a good writer, you have to go through that kind of a process of writing destroying you and rebuilding you. So this is exactly what you have to undergo. Again, I'm not talking like a politician. For me, every memory out there, every moment I was there in Tura. Of course, I had my problems because I was missing my family, my children, my husband, my parents. My parents were growing old and I was worried about them. I was worried how they're going to, in fact, cope up if I'm not around. Because I'm the youngest daughter and I ought to have been here. So those things were definitely there in the back of my mind. I was worried about all those things. But everybody in Tura, most of them, my students and my colleagues and all, what they did was that they helped me overcome my loneliness. They helped me become part of their families. The family. And whenever they come to Kerala, if anybody comes to Kerala, they inform me that I'm here. And I make it a point that I go meet them. And because it's like, that makes me very, very happy. Because I've been made to feel at home in Tura. So reciprocating that gratitude is not easy, but all I can do is that, whenever people from Tura come here, I really have to embrace them. Because they have embraced me so much. They have taken me into their heart so much. They've taken care of my husband, my child. My younger one was born and brought up in Kerala. So, and everything, I can only remember people of Garo Hills with a lot of gratitude. Right from the hills which resounded and echoed with hula monkeys' cries early in the morning, to my help who came to my house. She's still with me here. And my colleagues in the Garo Hills and the Garo department, the English department, Madam Angela and everybody out there, and the RDAP department. I know new departments are there in NEHU, Tura, but all I can remember each and every one, my colleagues and my friends and the staff in NEHU. I have to speak about them especially. They were very kind to me, and my students. They were really, really amazing. I can only look back at my life in Tura with a lot of nostalgia because it was it's haunting me almost, every moment. And there's no single day I don't remember Tura, okay? It's like there'll be sometimes some landscapes also make me remember Tura. And I can recognize anybody who is from Meghalaya, if they're around, in and around Trivandrum, Kerala, I can recognize them. I go to talk to them and things like that because the people in Garo Hills are so important to me. So thank you so much for giving me such an opportunity. I've just gone back in time.
Thank you so much, madam, for joining me on Kuatram. It was an honor having you on my show. Thank you once again. Nagan pengrang dalni Kuatram ni somai ba yanun bunaha. Nasimang sakanti ko nasimang ni support na agis katong mukchi. Matela makang chiba Kuatram ko niyangbo aro support kang kubo. Sakanti kon salam.